Hello and a very warm welcome. This is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. My name is Justin Bemian. Bamidele John is the sign language interpreter. First, let's look at the major stories. Special session of UN Human Rights Council opens in Geneva to discuss situation in Sudan. United States announces $1.2 billion security assistance package for Ukraine. And presidential election petition court adjourns to 18th May for further pre-hearing on petition filed by PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar challenging election of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The United Nations top rights body narrowly decides to beef up monitoring of abuses amid Sudan's spiraling conflict, despite vehement opposition from Khartoum. The UN Human Rights Council's 47 members voted with 18 in favor, 15 opposed and 14 abstaining from a resolution calling for an end to the violence and strengthening the mandate of a UN expert on Sudan.
The Sudan was received on May.
The UN rights chief Thursday called on the international community to exert all possible pressure on the fighting sides in Sudan to resolve the conflict and end the wanton violence. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk said the fighting has plunged the much-suffering country into catastrophe. Addressing a special session of the UN Human Rights Council on the situation in Sudan, he urged all states with influence in the region to encourage, by all possible means, the resolution of this crisis. His comments via video message came as fighting continued in the Sudanese capital, pushing ever more people to undertake dangerous journeys to safety across the country's borders. More than 750 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands have been displaced in the fighting that began on April 15 between Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, who commands the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF. Thursday's urgent council session in Geneva, requested by Britain, Germany, Norway and the United States, with the support of dozens of other countries, to wrap up later with a vote of a draft text calling for an immediate halt to the violence.
Look, I think this is a really important day for the Human Rights Council to show that it supports peace, that it supports human rights and international humanitarian law. And it's a vote for peace. It's a vote for international humanitarian law, a vote for human rights, and a vote for the people of Sudan, who are the victims of what is a completely unnecessary conflict.
We strongly condemn the wanton violence and killing of innocent civilians, including children. However, the call for this special session is a flagrant disregard of the sovereignty and political independence of Sudan, and indeed an outright dismissal of the efforts and commitments of the African Union, IGAD, UN Security Council and other regional mediation efforts to ensure a lasting ceasefire. It is pertinent to highlight that the very decision by some member states to convene this special session without recourse to ongoing continental efforts is obstructive. We have the view that actions such as these only undermine continental mediation efforts, including the robust engagement of Saudi Arabia and UAE. The delegation of Nigeria remains resolute that regardless of the alliances or nomenclature, any attempt to interfere in the internal politics of Sudan through the creation of another human rights mandate or mechanism is counterproductive and should neither be encouraged nor find room within this council.
Sudan's ambassador Hassan Hamid Hassan told the council his country was opposed to the special session, insisting that what is happening in Sudan is an internal affair, and cautioning the session could distract from efforts to achieve a lasting ceasefire. But Germany Ambassador Katharina Stach flatly rejected that idea, insisting to the council that peace and the respect for human rights go hand in hand. And U.S. Ambassador Michelle Taylor also stressed that negotiations to establish a ceasefire and get desperately needed humanitarian assistance flowing to the people of Sudan can and must occur at the same time that the Council fulfills its role and mandate in addressing the dire human rights situation.
Now, the crisis in Sudan has continued to raise tensions as more people take the dangerous journey away from the fighting through the borders of the country. Now, truce talks are still on in hopes that ceasefire is attained in not too long a time. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
A fresh ceasefire is said to have been agreed upon in Sudan less than 24 hours ago. Current events, however, indicate that the ceasefire has again been violated as heavy gunfire, grand explosions and thick black smoke covered the skyline of Khartoum, the capital city of Sudan. The army was quick to distance itself from the current threatened ceasefire as it accused the paramilitary of mobilizing its men, arming them and pushing them to raise tension. These the paramilitary has denied. The United Nations say efforts by the international community to end the crisis in Sudan has been vital. An airplane carrying UN aid for Sudanese refugees arrived Port Sudan airport earlier in the day, even though waiting evacuees were carried by the same airplane soon after the aid cargo got offloaded. The UN has warned that if the crisis in Sudan continues, Chad may be forced to accommodate over 100,000 refugees from Sudan as the UN continues to register Sudanese refugees at the border to be moved into Chad. Mediators of the truce talk say his progress is made and the meaningful truce isn't too far away. Kolo Mohammed, NTA News.
The European Union says it is collective duty to revitalize the European dream and reinvigorate European integration. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has proven that to protect the lives and health of citizens and preserve the economy, the European Union must take robust actions proportionate to the dangers threatening all. The theme of this year's Europe Day is building a Europe that is green, digital and competitive, fair and skilled, as well as strong, resilient and safe. Haman Jabani reports.
The Europe Day commemorates the signing of the Schuman's Declaration on 9th May 1950. This was an ambition plan to secure long-term peace in the post-war Europe that is considered the beginning of what is now the European Union. Schuman's Declaration was more than just building peace among Europes. It was also about making Europe a driving force for peace in the world. This year's Europe Day will bring citizens together to learn more about how the EU is supporting peace, security and democracy through its resolve in the face of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and other conflicts worldwide.
In this fight, the European Union and its member states stand shoulder by shoulder with Ukraine. The 9th of May also symbolizes something else, and that is solidarity. I assure you that you can count on that very same solidarity for as long as it takes.
Europe Day 2023 will also enable visitors to get better acquainted with the EU's efforts to build a continent that is green, digital and competitive, fair and skilled, as well as strong, resilient and safe. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
And earlier in the day, I had an interview with the EU ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Ambassador Samuela Isopi, on the Europe Day 2023. And here is an extract.
Europe Day every year celebrates peace and unity in Europe. But it is much more than that.
Okay.
And it is relevant not only for Europe. And let me explain to you why. I think we have to go very briefly to the beginning of our journey to understand what the Europe Day is all about.
Okay.
You know, European countries fought the worst wars in world history. Mm-hmm. And after the end of the Second World War, then French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman set out a vision, you know, to avoid and to make a war no longer possible in Europe. And he actually launched a very original and I would say even a revolutionary idea at the time. By proposing that European countries pool resources and share sovereignty by putting the control of the coal and steel industry, which means the hardware of war, under the control of a supranational organization. And this is where the idea of supranationalism comes from. And a few days later, 6 European countries, including France and Germany, that were, the two historical enemies, created the very first European community. It was the European community for coal and steel. And these two important materials that were used to produce weapons were put under the control of a common institution. And this is considered to be the founding act of what is today the European Union. And this vision allowed European peoples to benefit from decades of peace and prosperity.
When we talk about relations, the European Union and Nigerian relations, what are the current priorities the EU has?
The European Union and Nigeria have so much in common. We are neighbors, de facto, so we are natural partners, and we are somehow predestined to work together on many, 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 many issues. So it's difficult to say, in a very few words, what are the main areas of our cooperation with Nigeria, because actually we cover all possible and imaginable areas. From peace and security, which of course is important not only for Nigeria, but it's important also for Europe, because as a neighbor, we have a direct interest, in peace and stability in Nigeria. Trade and investment, of course. This is extremely important for us. It's very, European Union and Nigeria are two very important economic powers. And we feel that in that area in particular, we haven't really exploited and expressed the full potential of our relations. Energy. This is something which is extremely important. Europe, the European Union, is already a very important partner of Nigeria in the energy sector. I'm talking about both the oil and gas, but also the renewable energies. And this is also an area where we would like to do more. People to people, migration and mobility. Talking about not only, how to address together the issue of illegal, irregular migration to Europe, but how to actually foster and create more opportunities for our peoples to connect with each other by exchange programs for students, for researchers. So there's so much potential and so much that we can do together.
Now, talking more on your relation with Nigeria, talking about the EU's relation with Nigeria. The EU has declared the 2023 European Year of Skills, and in that regard, in what areas, in what ways are you translating this theme into concrete actions as it regards the EU, its engagement with Nigeria?
First of all, I think this theme is a general theme of the European Union, right? Because the issue of addressing the skill gaps, from the point of view especially of the young people, that need to be skilled in order to be employable, and also from the side of the companies. So in Europe, we also face the same issues. And in Nigeria, this theme is particularly relevant, of course. And we have launched in the past few years a number of very interesting initiatives that we hope will help actually address these gaps. Let me just mention some of those. For example, a very important initiative that has been launched by the Office of the Vice President and that we have supported, which is the Nigeria Jubilee Fellow Program, which is a very innovative initiative to select and then place with companies or institutions in the public sector 20,000 Nigerian graduates, young Nigerians, for a 1-year paid internship with private companies and public institutions. This is very innovative.
Samuel Isope there on Europe Day 2023. Now moving on, the United States has announced a new $1.2 billion security assistance package for Ukraine to boost the country's air defense and provide it with additional artillery ammunition. Charles Alpha reports.
Ukraine will receive 155 mm howitzer ammunition, counter-drone ammunition, and funding for satellite imagery, as well as various types of training, a U.S. official said. The package is paid from Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative funding, which allows President Joe Biden's administration to buy weapons from industry rather than pull from U.S. weapons stocks.
In addition to the U.S.-produced short-range air defense systems the Ukrainians have been using to great effect, the United States has also identified and is helping the Ukrainians acquire from our partners and allies additional longer-range systems on which Ukraine's forces are already trained, as well as additional munitions for those systems.
The military aid report says comes as Congress and the White House debate ways to avoid a default on the nation's debts, and many Republicans demanding sharp cuts in domestic spending in exchange for lifting the debt limit. However, members of both parties insist they support continued aid for Ukraine, including top Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, the top Republicans in the Senate. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
You're watching the news on International. We'll take a short break now. The news continues in a moment. Just stay with us. Now, at the end of this second session of the Great Joint Cooperation Commission of the Kingdom of Morocco and the Republic of Cape Verde, the parties reaffirmed both countries' willingness to develop an ambitious public-private partnership mutually beneficial to serve as a model of South-South cooperation on the continent. Adabla Brooks on the reports.
The first edition of the Economic Forum between Cameroonian and Moroccan investors in the fields of leather and wood is underway in Rabat. The forum is aimed at establishing partnerships between Moroccan and Cameroonian investors in the value chains. In a similar development, the Morocco-Cape Verde Great Joint Commission, co-chaired with the Cape Verdean Minister of Foreign Affairs, Cooperation and Regional Integration, Real Alberto de Figueiredo Soares, has held a meeting to give new impetus to bilateral cooperation. Burita said the meeting reflects the strong relationship between the two countries, noting that Morocco finds in Cape Verde a continued support for the interests of the kingdom and its territorial integrity.
We have agreed on the mechanisms that must keep pace with positive development in bilateral relations. 2.5 years ago, Cape Verde opened an embassy in Rabat, and Morocco will be opening an embassy in Cape Verde capital as well.
Morocco, strongly convinced of the relevance of South-South cooperation, which His Majesty King Mohammed VI has always enshrined, will spare no efforts to support the brotherly Cape Verde with the aim of developing priority economic and social sectors such as health, tourism, fisheries, agriculture, the blue economy, and energy transition, which are the main axes of the strategic plan for sustainable development 2022 to 2026.
The quality of the relations that we have deepened 2 years ago with Morocco led to the opening of an embassy in Rabat, as well as a general consulate in Dakhla. We would like to show from our part our stand with Morocco's plan of peace and stability.
In this regard, Moroccan representatives said Morocco is willing to strengthen cooperation with Cape Verde, working to better adapt the training opportunities in Morocco to the needs of Cape Verde in terms of skills and human resources capacity. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
Now back in Nigeria, where the presidential election petition court has adjourned to 18th May for further pre-hearing on the petition filed by Atiku Abubakar challenging the election of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Austin Anyebe reports that the adjournment was at the instance of counsel to parties in the petition.
The first petitioner, Atiku Abubakar, and the second PDP, represented by the acting national chairman, Ambassador Umar Damagun, were in court. Upon commencement of the proceeding, counsel to the petitioners, Chris Uche, senior advocate of Nigeria, sought the permission of the court to allow them between Thursday 11th and Tuesday 16th May sort out all relevant documents to be used during the proper hearing. He told the court that counsel to the parties in the petition have met and agreed that a joint team is constituted to sort out relevant documents to be tendered to pave way for seamless proceeding during the proper hearing of the petition. The window, they stressed, would also enable them to respond to all applications served on them, including one by the petitioner seeking the live coverage of the proceeding at the court. With no objections, Justice Haruna Simon Samani adjourned to 18th May 2023 for further pre-hearing of the petition.
We served the other parties the motion for the televising of the proceedings. They explained here that they are still in the process of filing their replies. Therefore, we could not proceed without their input. So we don't want to anticipate their response. That's why the matter and this motion and other motions have all been adjourned to Thursday next week.
The second petition mentioned Thursday is that filed by the Allied People's Movement against INEC, APC, Bola Tinubu, and Kashim Shettima. Proceeding followed that of Atiku as counsel to Allied People's Movement, or OBED, sought adjournment for pre-hearing of the petition to 18th May to enable counsel to the parties in the petition to sort out documents. Counsel to the respondents agree with him, saying a joint team has already been set up to look at all the documents to be tendered with a view to coming up with relevant ones that will reduce unnecessary objections during the proper hearing of the petition. They assured the court that before 18th of May 2023, they must have exchanged necessary processes for all the applications filed. The court agreed and thanked them for the cooperation so far, hence adjourned to 18th of May 2023 for further pre-hearing. From the Court of Appeal, Abuja, venue of the sitting, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
In another development, the Supreme Court has adjourned the hearing in the suit filed by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, to September 14, 2023. The five-man panel of justices of the Apex Court, led by Justice John Okoro, gave the order at the resumed hearing of the appeal of Nnamdi Kanu against the verdict of the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja. Kanu, through his counsel Mike Ozekome, SAN, on 3rd November 2022, filed an appeal at the Supreme Court against the Court of Appeal's verdict stopping his release from the DSS custody. Nnamdi Kanu, as appellant in this matter, is appealing the October 28, 2022 decision of the Appellate Court, which stayed the execution of its earlier order acquitting him of all charges and directing his release from the custody of the DSS. Michael Zokeme, SAN, before the adjournment, pleaded with the five-man panel of justices of the Apex Court to order the release of Nnamdi Kanu from detention on a compassionate ground due to the appellant's alleged ill health. Counsel to the respondent in the matter opposed the prayer of the counsel to the appellant. With this development, Nnamdi Kanu's appeal is due for hearing again on 14th September 2023. And the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, has blamed policy inconsistency for the failure of several attempts at decongesting the Nigerian correction system. He spoke at the Decongestion and Corrections Administration Conference underway in Abuja. And Kelvin Onoye reports.
There are 75,507 inmates spread across the 240 correctional centers in Nigeria. Government data shows that 82 of these centers are overcrowded, with 81% awaiting trial inmates. This comes at a high cost to government, which budgeted 22.44 billion naira for feeding alone in the 2023 budget. With overstretched facilities and huge financial burden, the Chief Justice of Nigeria says there is no better time than now to muster political will to bring to fruition all the reforms being worked on for many years, a position adopted by the Minister of Interior, Ralph Arigbeshola.
From the information already in public domain, unnecessary prison congestions have severally led to incessant jailbreaks, and of course, the overstretching of the various dilapidated custodial facilities across the country.
We will not shy the states for accommodating their inmates, their convicts and suspects. We will not. But going forward with the new law, we will not share. They will pay appropriate fee for feeding.
The conference, put together by the Ministry of Interior, Nigerian Correctional Service, and the Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, is being attended by civil society organizations and development partners to find a clearer path to the seamless decongestion of correction centers, especially how to develop a blueprint to help the state government set up their own correctional service as contained in the new law. In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye, NTA News.
This is where the news on NTA International ends. Thanks for being a part of it. My name is Justin Bemuyan. Bamidele John has been the sign language interpreter.